All right, let's head over to the Zoom line and talk with Cara Glenn with Trades Powered by Her. That's right, powered by her. How you doing today, Cara?
Good, Jason. I'm doing really good.
The woman with two first names, Cara Glenn. Look at that.
Two first names.
Let's talk a little bit about Trades Powered by Her. Let's talk a little bit about the genesis and what you've been doing with it.
Yep, we're full steam right now. Even though we just kicked off in May, we've completed, a few of our projects. Most of them are geared towards tradeswomen, obviously, but those that are entering or want to enter trades, and programs that I thought would close the skill gap, that would close the wage gap. And those programs are everything from Asking a Tradeswoman, which we already completed. We started an FR drive for collecting FRs here locally, doing welding clinics. Our Build a Skill program just kicked off, and a professional headshots for, it's supposed to be for moms returning back to work, and with some other programs left for the rest of the year. But these are what the programs are for, is building women in trades.
All right, I wrote down a couple things, a couple notes that I'd like to expound on a little bit. FR, is that fire resistance?
It is. It's the clothing in that we have to wear on most oil and gas projects. And there are just not a lot of stores that carry various sizes. So I started an FR drive to be able to collect, women's clothing here. So if women can't find sizes around here locally and they're in a bind, either financially or just can't find it, they could give us a call or shoot me a text and be like, hey, do you have this size? And hopefully we'll have it on stock.
I'd like to highlight a little bit more, and the reason for it is when I first started doing the oil and gas reporting, the crude life, I want to say probably about 6 months in. So we're talking about, I don't know, we'll just say, August of 2012, because I started the crude life in March of 2012. And the thing that I noticed was that if you're going to go to Wall Street or you're going to go to, some Madison Avenue, a lot of the women will look for a man with an Armani suit. At least that's kind of the stereotype. I wrote about how the women, they look for men in the FRs because the fire resistant clothing is like the Armani suit of the oil patch because they're not cheap, Cara.
No, you're talking $120 for, some of the shirts I order. They've came down a lot in pricing, but if you're brand new and just starting out, I mean, that's a lot. That's a day's work out here. And I know a lot of, especially women, if you're looking through these racks, there's only one or two smalls. And so you buy those, great. You have 2 days worth of clothing. So if we can stock up, it might not be in the pristine condition, but at least you have a week's worth of clothing that you don't have to shell out, a bunch of money for right up front.
And is there a difference between men and women's FR clothing? I mean, we only pretty much focused on the men because back 10, 12 years ago, there wasn't very many women out in the oil field.
This is part of my problem here is there's this companies for a long time, and I'm not going to put these companies on blast, but all the major FR manufacturers kind of have just been doing this pink and shrink, behind their clothing, which is just shrinking, men's size. And to be honest, women are not small men, if you look at the body shapes and, go with companies that have actually done the biometrics of a woman's body and, how this clothing works with a woman's body and it hasn't been tested on a woman's body. Those are the companies that should really be advertising, women's FRs. And so there is a huge difference. And, trying to find these companies has been like a needle in a haystack, but there's more coming out for sure. But that's been the most frustrating for me is these companies that are just shrinking men's sizes, and that's not a woman's body.
That's interesting that they just shrink them and dye them pink and call it a woman's FR clothing.
Yeah,
That's
just all pink.
can't get much more stereotypical than that. That's for sure. The other note I wrote down is moms returning to work. Talk to me a little bit more about that.
Well, I wanted one of the things when I was going back to work, I was so embarrassed because I had like this dated headshot, and it was just an idea that I always had in my head. I was like, I wanted to be able to provide professional headshots for moms returning back to work. And then it kind of blossomed into, I was like, well, I want to open it up to any women here in the community who want a professional headshot, and they're in oil and gas, that we wanted to provide not just a blank, white background. I wanted to do industry photos, and I'll share some of those with you. But whether it was, a young lady who was she happened to be an operator, but she was advancing in her career. And so I was like, hey, let's do some equipment in the background, but let's make it professional. Or, are you advancing in your engineering career? Let's put a drilling rig in the background. Or, I just didn't want the typical black and white photos. I wanted them to be very professional, but I wanted to do something super unique for, these moms and women.
Is that pretty common for a woman to go back to work in the oil patch after having a child? I guess I never even put that together. I mean, at a bank, yeah, I get it, but I mean,
That it's came up, I think, 3 or 4 times this year, and that was really the motivation behind it. I had been confronted like, oh, I'm going back to work, and it's a different role, or and so I wanted to be able to help and be like, well, how can we fix that gap that you've been missing work here? Like, how can we advance you? And I think having a really good headshot to add to that resume was kind of my way of trying to get back in there for these
Cara
women.
Glenn is our guest. Trades Powered by Her is the name of her organization. Be sure to check her out on LinkedIn or Facebook. And I'm not really on Facebook, so I don't really follow much on that, but I do follow you on LinkedIn. And I saw one of the clinics you have, or one of the different groups that you have, was changing a tire. And I think of that Office episode where Pam Beasley went through a season of empowerment, and changing a tire was one of those certain empowerment actions or demonstrations that she did. There is something about being able to change your own tire. I know a lot of men who can't even change their tire. Talk to me a little bit about this Change Your Tire clinic and how that went and what it represents.
Well, that clinic is actually coming up October 12th. And that
Oh, well, hang on. Let me write
was,
that down. Okay. Well,
yep,
this is a promo now. Okay.
this
All
is a
right.
promo. Yeah, that's coming up. That clinic is coming up October 12th, and it's going to be hosted here at OK Tire. So they've offered to give us their really nice facility and their expertise to host this. And the reason behind this was actually, you move to a city and you can call AAA, you can call somewhere, but I thought it was important here because we've had a couple of years where there was some pretty bad storms, and you get stuck on the side of the road. It's honestly dangerous for sometimes, first responders to get out to you for whatever reason. If you had to travel, which we've had to do, or you're leaving work and you've got to, you've only got a little bit of gas or whatever it is, you don't have time to be sitting there in -40 waiting for first responders if they can get to you. And so I was like, man, changing a tire in the snow would really suck, but it would really suck if no one could get to you and you had to change it and you didn't know how. And so I want to open this up to women. Our first 10 is going to be women, but I believe after this round, we'll see how it goes. I'd like to open it to young men as well. And because I think there are a lot of young men who are not, who are lacking that skill, to be honest. So hopefully we can do both.
I think men of all ages, there's quite a few lacking the skill, but I'm taking a look at your graphic that you have on social media, and folks, feel free to check it out on LinkedIn or Facebook specifically. And it's happening October 12th in Watford City, OK Tire, 10 spaces available. And it looks like there's no cost, huh?
No, we have funding available to do one class for 10 women. And if it's a hit, I'd like to raise another round of funding to be able to do more. So no cost for 10 women.
Are you doing
Or
any of
girls.
these? Have you done any other classes? I mean, I see your graphics pop up from time to time, and whether it be welding or something like that. Talk to me about some of the other clinics or classes that you've done.
Yep. Yep, we've done some weld clinics, and we just did a pilot program. We wasn't really in our schedule to do, but we did a build a skill clinic where we set a price on a project, whether it's like a small welding table or a pipe rack, something small, and I say, hey, this is going to be $300. If it takes you a week, if it takes you 2 weeks, I'm going to give you $300 to build this. I'm going to guide you through it. I'm going to help you measure, cut. I'm going to give you all the skills to be able to do this. And then when you're done building it, you're going to get $300, and it goes to whoever paid for it, you know? And the idea behind that is you see a lot of people saying, you know, oh, this quote drives me crazy. You know, make going into trades just as normal as going into college, or whatever the trade is, or whatever the quote is. I just butchered it, but and then no one hires them afterwards. Then you got a bunch of green, you know, tradesmen and women, and I see them on my pages all the time because no one wants to hire these green welders and these green tradesmen. And so what do you do? So my idea was, let's get these small projects. We'll put a set price on it, and that encourages them to pay attention and measure twice and cut once. And it worked marvelously. It worked. I mean, 6 months of welding school, and this girl was doing more in 2 weeks than she did in her whole 6 months. It's working. So that's our build a skill clinic that we just finished.
Build a skill clinic. Okay.
Yeah.
How is the trades going? I mean, that was another story that we did quite a bit on the crude life. We spent a lot of time, primarily 2016, 2017, talking about the renaissance and resurgence of these trades, that there were so many companies wanting kids to basically not go to a 4-year school, but rather go to a trade school, go learn how to be a welder, learn how to be a plumber, learn how to be a pipe fitter. How's that going? Are you seeing the demand? Is there jobs available?
You know, I see a huge demand. I see both sides. I see a lot of people on our pages, our welding women pages, who are actively looking for work. They're all, you know, just got out of college, just got out of a trade school, welding school. And then I see the other side. I see a lot of openings, whether it's in Texas or here. And how do we make these two meet? Because on one hand, the employer doesn't want to hire these, you know, green welders, these green tradesmen and women. And it seems like the very green employee doesn't know how to reach these employers. So how do you bridge, you know, how do you bridge that? And the only way I can think of is to give these green hands some confidence and like, okay, you're not green, you know how to build this, this, and this. And whether it was one small project or, you know, a few weeks in the shop, whatever it is, you've got to build that person's confidence, because there's just so many of these green hands that are coming out and nobody wants to hire them. So, you know, we've pushed trades so much, but yet there's really no invitation into the trades for them.
One of your other social media posts that just stands out in my head is the Chingonga of the week. It's something like that. What is that word? What does it mean? And talk to me a little bit about that.
Oh, the Chingona of the week.
Ching,
Yes.
what is it? Chingona?
Chingona. Yes, that is the that's the badass of the week.
Oh, look at that. Get the mute button ready. Okay.
Uh-oh, sorry.
No, I'm just
Sorry.
kidding. I'm just giving you a hard time. That's one of the words that George Carlin allows us to say.
Okay, we
But
got one.
is that a Spanish word?
It is. It's a Spanish word. And you know, the story behind that is when I started out as a pipeline welder, I was still pretty brand new. And the Mexican guys, you know, they would never call me by my name. They would always say, you know, and they spoke to each other. They never said this to me, but they would say, oh, I got to go get so and so and so for chingona. And I never thought they were talking about me. And then one day, you know, someone asked me, I don't know, it was a question. And he's just like, oh, the chingona. He's like, you're the chingona. And I was like humbled and embarrassed and all these emotions. And so ever since then, I wanted to name, you know, and highlight women who are in trades, you know, highlighting the chingona of the week. And that was from my embarrassing name that I somehow acquired in the pipeline, but a good name. But that's what Archingona is of the week is women in trades and how they got there, and making them a cool highlight on our page.
I had an ulterior motive to go down that path. I knew it was a Spanish word, but I wanted a good segue into National Hispanic Heritage Month, which actually started a couple days ago on September 15th, and it runs through October 15th, which I think is really funny because here Hispanics are doing it their own way. Everyone else, goes from the 1st to the 30th for months. No, not National Hispanic Month. We go from September 15th to October 15th. And I just love that. But talk to me a little bit about National Hispanic Heritage Month, what that means to you, and how you celebrate it within your organization and with yourself personally.
So it's really, my Hispanic heritage is very near and dear to my heart, because I feel that's where I get my work ethic, my drive. And what comes with that is, over the years, I've seen a lot of Hispanic people who, don't speak up on the workplace because, that's the stigma of Hispanic workers, right? It's like, man, they're hard workers. They keep their head down. They nothing out of them, not a peep. They'll come to work. And it's like, yeah, I get that. But are the conditions really good? And are they not speaking up because what, and that's what I tried to dive into with Hispanic Heritage Month last year, and I really didn't get to it. But this year I really wanted to highlight, and being Hispanic right now is actually very unpopular. So that's kind of a hard deal for me right now, because, it's really hard because a lot of my followers and supporters, definitely Trump supporters. So being Hispanic right now, I'm trying to highlight that. Very unpopular, I'll just say that. But it is important because this is who our workforce is, and we have to take care of our workforce. And I'm talking about, legal, illegal, visa. This is a mindset of keep your head down and shut up. And the problem I have is when it comes down to women being harassed, women being discriminated against and not speaking up because of generations of be grateful for your job, go to work, don't say anything. I'm like, hey, nope, we're going to end that. And not just speaking up and being a squeaky wheel about it, but giving the tools to women, saying, hey, let's figure out, how we can talk to the employee or the employer and say, hey, these things aren't right. How can we fix that? And then also identifying what's illegal and what is not even worth talking to the employer about, and saying, hey, this is flat out discrimination or whatever it is. But identifying how to handle the situation is what I'm going to try to do, and not just be a squeaky wheel about it and, put people on blast, but give women the tools to fix it themselves.
I didn't even realize that it was unpopular to be Hispanic. Is that
Well,
because of the illegal immigration stuff?
it's hard. It really is. I hated even feeling that way. I hated that I even hesitated to put this post up, and I was like, no, this is what I'm proud of, and this is what I want to change. But why I even hesitated to even put it up? Well, I mean, it's not a big secret, who is running oil and gas. Well, it's predominantly white males, and it is what it is, but what is the stigma right now? Well, that Hispanic people are, climbing over the border and taking over jobs. Well, okay. But what I'm talking about is generations of legal workers here who have gone through a lot of not great working conditions. And I want to try and change that. But it's hard when, your followers and your supporters feel one way about Hispanic people right now.
Well, this makes this next question a little bit of a wild card for me then, because when I wrote down this question as we were talking, I didn't realize that Hispanics were being stigmatized like that still. I mean, I don't have a TV. I got rid of my TV in 2006. So I don't stay up to date on a lot of the different news and that sort of thing. And I generally just accept people for who they are, and, on an individual basis rather than blanket certain groups of people, labeling people. I try not to get into that too much. But I did write down double minority, because you're a woman, which is a minority in the workplace, especially in the trades workplace. And you're also Hispanic. And you mentioned before that, especially in the oil and gas industry, it's predominantly white men. So I wanted to ask you about what it's like being a double minority in an industry that is so predominantly white men. But I didn't realize it was such a hot topic right now. But so you can avoid it if you want.
No, it's fine.
But when I look at like North Dakota versus Texas, when I was down in Texas, I was the minority. There was more Hispanics at the events that I went to than Caucasians. When I
Sure.
go to North Dakota, we had one African American black person that graduated from my high school. That was it.
Yeah.
Everybody else was white. So it's predominantly Caucasian and white in North Dakota. Is there a difference between going to Texas and doing business and being in North Dakota doing business when we're talking about being a double minority, being a woman and being a Hispanic?
It is. It absolutely is. I feel down south, working down south, it's just assumed that, either you're related to somebody that shouldn't be here, or you know somebody, or you're working with somebody
Wow.
that, got a job that, you know, doesn't have a social security number. And the jokes are kind of just really said freely and said, without even feeling like anybody would say anything to them about it. Up here, I don't see that out in town or in our community. I don't feel that way. However, it's a different situation when you're out on projects. And, I'm not trying to say that it's because there's a mix of people from either down south or from different areas where it's okay. And it's not, you know, shamed or anything to say some of these things, slurs and whatever. But I will say I do see it more on projects than anything, and have over the years. I think it's getting better, but I still see it, and I still see it. I still hear it. Hasn't gone away.
What I've found when it comes to any sort of labeling or pushback or discrimination, if you will, down south, they're very much upfront about it, and they'll say what's on their mind and they don't hold back. Same thing on the East Coast, like New York and some of the, Boston and Massachusetts and things like that. New York, it's a little more rude. Down south, it's a little more direct.
Yep.
And in North Dakota, I found it to be very passive aggressive, where they might, smile and be nice, but they still don't offer the support that they say they're going to, but they'll smile and they'll do that. So it's different layers and different levels of whether it's discrimination or whether it's comments or whatever it might be. And so that was just kind of my observation of the different areas and kind of some of that negativity or just some of that different discourse or different talk and that sort of thing. I don't know if you want to add to that or comment on it, but here I'm a, white man over 40. I mean, what experience really do I have in these types of realms? So it's,
I think that's what's hard is up here. I would actually rather, however they're feeling, just to come out and say it so I can either correct them or at least know what's on their mind. But and down south, you definitely don't have that problem. Hey, okay, this guy's definitely just he's discriminating against that group, or he's racist, or whatever it is, like, because he said it. But up here, I feel sometimes I don't know what's going on with people. Like, well, okay, well, why didn't they like that group, or why doesn't that inspector, is it because he doesn't like our company, or is it he doesn't like that group of people, or is he just having a bad day? And it is a different passive people up here. So sometimes you don't know. That's even worse, because, not knowing why you don't know why something is going wrong. I'd rather have them just come out and say, like, hey, I'm not having a good day because of this. And it's a very passive group up here in North Dakota for sure.
when I was experiencing something along this lines down in Texas, I had the CEO apologize to me and for being very direct and that sort of thing. And I said, "Hey, listen, man, I'd rather see the knife going in my chest than in my back. So I appreciate, kind of the directness of it. At least I know where I stand. At least I can, understand where it's coming from. I might not agree with it, but at least I know. Just to kind of, I guess, elaborate a little bit on your comments as well. Uh, Cara Glenn is her name. Trades Powered by Her is the name of her organization. And what's next for you? What do you got? You have this Change Your Tire event happening October 12th. Do you have any other events coming up or any other sort of classes or clinics?
Yep. So one of the observations I also made this year is, I was like, why are men advancing in the oil and gas careers, and why are women not? And they are, but just not as quickly. And I seen that, in oil and gas, a lot of the events are based around these golf events and these clay shoots. And this is where a lot of heavy mingling goes on between contractor and client. And what I've noticed over the years is that the women are usually typically setting up at the tents, and that's kind of where they park all day. And the business development guys are going out in the golf cart, or they're going on the clay shoots. And I'm guilty of it. I've definitely sat up and propped up at the tent because I couldn't golf or I didn't know how to shoot. And so a couple of the clinics that I want to do next year, on top of various first aid classes and some other heavy machinery operating classes, but two that are going to be very important are getting some golf clinics out to these business development women, and getting some clay shoot and shooting clinics out to some of these women, some maybe some private training or some group training, because this is where the decision makers are going. They're going on these charity events, they're going on these charity golf clinics, and there's not a lot of women that are going out to these. I'm like, hey, these are where the deals and the promotions and the next jobs are being talked about. This is where it's happening, and you're in the tent handing out waters. Get out there. And how can we get them out there? Well, we got to get them comfortable with a shotgun. We got to get them comfortable on clay shoots, comfortable being, not the greatest golfer, but at least to get out there. And so those are going to be, some heavy clinics that I want to do next year, and all the same ones that we did this year as well. So adding some more. It's going to be a busy year.
I guess so. Well, how can people support your cause, and any words of encouragement you might have for women out there or Hispanics out there that want to join the trades?
Well, you can go to our LinkedIn page, and it has a contact us button. Our Facebook has our links on there as well. And it has a Linktree link that either has our different social medias, but also our PayPal link. And even if it's $10, $15, there's tons of things that our shop could use, for everything from, welding gloves to, small hand tools, things that we have to purchase this year. So that's where you can find us. And hopefully we'll get a newsletter out soon. And women, I think the words of encouragement I have is, it can be done. Like, I think I was the worst welder in my class, and I went from, being the worst welder in the class to the worst welder at the company to owning the company. So if I can encourage any of you, I'm just saying it can be done, because I started at the absolute bottom, the absolute worst, to owning the company. And so it can be done. Absolutely. Don't give up.
We'll make sure we have the links available at our websites as well. So,
Thank you.
Cara Glenn, thanks for the time today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.